But great. For our viewers who are on with us tonight, I want to welcome you to one of our live streams tonight. It's called Let's Talk About It. I'm Dr. Willie Miles, and
I am Jacqueline Hampton Clemens.
I'm going to be your host throughout these live streams. We do these live streams every Tuesday night at 7 o'clock, and when we don't do them, we'll give you ample notice because many people are just raring to get on with us. Again, I am just very excited about what we are doing here in Atlanta, Georgia. I am the president of Dr. Willie Miles Children's Foundation located here in Atlanta, Georgia. And our mission statement really is to making children our priority. And Jackie, I just want to talk a little bit about what's happening in Atlanta. And I'm sure it's happening across the country. There are many people who are sending me emails regarding, do I know of places that can pay their rent and those kind of things, and also for food. But in in Georgia, we have community action agencies, and I'm pretty sure there's one in every state. Right. But I got a notification today that the Community Action Agency has funding for to pay people's rent, back rent, awesome. And also for food and also utilities. So for those viewers who are on, you may want to take a look at your state and see if you all have something similar. It may be called partnership agencies, but usually there are agencies that help with these kind of emergencies we're having. I do want to share that my understanding is that they have money to spend and that the money runs out December 31st. So they're anxious to try to find people to get those funds. But you would think there are plenty of people who need that kind of help.
Yeah, you would think that would not be the issue. Are we able to post the contact information?
No, I can't do that on Instagram. I can do it on, I can actually post it later on, but I'm not that tech savvy where I can do the captions.
I got you.
So,
well, actually, I meant on the website, but yes.
Yeah, we can do that. We can actually post it on our Instagram account. Okay. But again, my only concern though is that it will be the different for each state. So they probably do just like I did. I went to my browser and put in community action agencies or community partnerships or rental assistance, and they pop up in your various states. All right.
And I guess you can just indicate that yours is for your local area.
Yeah, it's just for the community action agencies are in the state of Georgia. All right. Also, I want to share that we've been passing out getting requests regarding the gift cards we're sending out. And to our audience, the foundation actually is giving out gift cards in the value of $50 and $100 to needy families. And I sort of want to preference what we mean by that. We're looking to help families who don't have food on the table. We're looking to families who are just barely making it. Please do not send us requests to ask us to buy Nike shoes, PlayStations, and all those kinds of things for your children. That is not what this money is for. And I'm not trying to judge, but I just think if you're able to get those kind of things, you're doing pretty good.
Yeah, because we really were focused on people who might not have a meal on the table. Maybe doing something very small for a child, but those are large, expensive items. So, that's just not a connect with this program.
Right. It's kind of interesting. I'm not making fun of it, but the person said, well, I want to make my children smile with those things. I said, I would smile getting those things also. But on a serious note, there are plenty of families, Jackie, who are just really suffering out there. And I think it's our commitment to make sure we find those folk. Now, we have had some people who have sent requests in. And Jackie, I guess you and I will make a decision tonight or tomorrow and get those cards out to those folk who have sent in. And we're just very happy that we're able to do this. I mean, this is part of what we are and who we are.
Right. So, we're going to connect with some homeless shelters because we know those are the families that might be struggling as well. So,
yeah. All right. So again, let's get those families if you know of families who are in dire need of financial assistance, that means in the form of not for us to pay a bill. We're not trying to do that. We're really trying to put food on the table and or give parents just a little money so they can have a nice little Christmas for their kids and for and having food and buying maybe a gift. These are Walmart cards. So the deadline was today. I can't extend it until tomorrow for those who are listening, but get those emails into us. And the email address you're going to send your request to is info@thechildrensfoundation.net. It's info@thechildrensfoundation.net. we're looking forward to get those cards out to you. And
Right. And we will be reviewing them tomorrow for sure, and making some decisions for those who are watching and wondering.
yeah, I want to thank some of those not just I almost call them members, but who've been donating to us. We've done pretty good, and I'm really thankful for that. And of course, the more we get in, the more we'll do, not only through the holidays, but people will have needs after the holidays. And just a few of the well, maybe I should not call names out. I did post their last names on Instagram. They know who they are. But thank you all for giving to us. It is the time of giving if we're going to ever give. And sort of scripturally is that to whom much is given, much is required. And that much is required is for us to help somebody else who's in need. So, Jackie, you have any other announcements?
No, I don't. I'm ready to get started with our topic.
I want to ask you, do you know of any organizations in your area that you're in Florida that's helping, that's doing something similar?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, there's a call going on right now. I do know that the Fort Lauderdale chapter of the Links, I mentioned this to them in terms of working together, possibly matching dollars. They have decided to give out $3,500 in support and are literally having a call right now to determine what that would look like. But it's looking very similar to what we are doing, looking to support those really in need, not with any grand gifts. Chances are they're going to buy gift cards the same way that you're doing and figure out who to distribute them to. And we may be talking about $20 gift cards. It may be a meal, for 175 people. But I do know that the Fort Lauderdale chapter of the Links is doing that. I do know that MODCO, which is the Mount Olive Community Development Corporation, is also looking into how they can support real needs for this holiday season.
Well, what's interesting, Jackie, I actually was going to change this topic tonight, and I was wrestling with it.
Okay.
I was wrestling with meeting the needs of people. We're talking about racism and the coloration. Our whole goal is to make people aware. We're still going to do that. But what I was struggling with is that in the midst of, there are people out there that are hurting. And oftentimes our kind of media don't reach those people because the people who need the help are not watching us.
Exactly.
Are you with me? And so that's why we need our viewers to not just come here and look at us, but tell people there's help out there.
Become part of this mission.
Yeah, there's plenty of help. There's plenty of help, and we have to reach out to those who are less fortunate than us. And oftentimes, we go through these situations, we sit there as if we're the only ones, and or things are going well with us. We only care about our families. But check on your neighbors. Check on your neighbors. And guess what? Probably all they need to hear is that there's help out there. There is help out there, and that somebody really cares.
Yeah, and you make a good point. If we don't know people, by all means, ask around. Right. Don't just say somebody knows someone that needs help. And a lot of times, Dr. Miles, when it's that kind of help, it's not out there. They're probably not at the centers because maybe, they're not at that point where they feel they want to ask, but at the same time, they could use some help. Right. So I think if we, like you said, let's check with some of our friends. Let's check with maybe their family members. But let's get the word out, guys. I think that's where impact is. You can make an impact. It's the little things that matter. And honestly, I think having a $20 card for a meal or $50 where you might get a meal and maybe you get the kid a little toy, I think that's going to make a big difference this holiday.
It's amazing to me. $50 can go a long ways. I'm not trying to tell people how to budget, but the issue is that my goal is to do what you want to do with it. I mean, I'm not trying to tell you how to spend it. My responsibility is to get it so I can get it to you. But our intent was to make sure we get families who are really struggling. And it doesn't mean that parents who are working, some parents are working and are struggling. But Jackie, our goal was really to get those people who we thought maybe just needed a bump. And this bump will help them out a whole lot. Yep. I do want to share also that there are other organizations in your community. We're just going to enlighten the community right now. Try your local churches, your larger churches. Check with your 411 agencies. I mean, I'm telling you, people. Jackie and I were talking earlier today. We said it's kind of amazing how so much is out there, but if people don't know where it is, it's a mood issue. It's a mood issue. Right. So maybe we'll do a challenge, Jackie, and that challenge is that our organization will actually send the money, and it's limited. But what each viewer can do is to get a resource that they may know and post it on their website and have somebody to share it of local resources, because there's help out there. The point is that many people don't know where it is, and it's not time to be proud right now. Proud.
And I also want to challenge our members to join us, match us. Maybe you go out there and do 5 $20 gift certificates or gift cards, and let us know about it. You know, just saying, hey, I decided to match what you were doing. I mean, you may be in another state, but you just kind of wanted to join that effort to reach out. Because again, Dr. Miles, one of the things you and I talked about is that sometimes the same families keep getting help. You know, they become professionals at getting the help, and those kids end up with more toys than the people who didn't need help. And what people don't realize is a lot of times they either don't use them, don't need them, don't appreciate them. But we really want those who are just, you know, a lot of people are having a hard time this holiday season.
I gotta let this go. But when you said they sort of like trigger something in me, we got some professional organization hoppers.
Absolutely.
And they know exactly where to go. And the thing about it, they get so much stuff, they hoard it.
Yes.
And I'm just saying they can't use it all.
No.
Okay, let's move on. That's another story. That's another story.
People end up with 5 turkeys. Stop. Made every stop.
I want you to stop. We're not going there because maybe they got they got kids who eat a lot of turkey. Sure. I don't know. But okay. Okay, our topic tonight is we think it's very exciting. It's kind of interesting. You know, when we were researching it, we kind of like trying to figure out like what angle we approach this from. And it's about race and colorism. And the question is like, what is colorism, first of all, and how does it impact children? How does it impact children? You know, those of you who know us know that everything we talk about is all about, you know, how it impacts children. But it's kind of amazing. We're looking at how it impacts adults too. But tonight, Jackie, it's going to be interesting, isn't it? Racism and colorism. Before you begin, Jackie, I want to share that I've gotten quite a few people who have said, please take me off your email list. And really? I just said, is it because our topic is racism? Well, guess what? That'd be the case. So be it. So be it.
And guess what? Until we have these conversations, because Dr. Miles, we've not had one conversation from a racist position or even from a biased position. This is information. Until we start having these conversations, a lot of the discord going on in this country will not go away. We can't ignore it. We can't pretend it's not there. So you said, listen, I'm going to talk about these things and invite others to talk. So exactly. For those who wanted to be taken off or anyone who's thinking about it, this is intended to enlighten and educate us all.
Because it's going to move us forward. It's going to move us forward.
And most importantly, it's also going to provide a platform for our children to be safer, to be educated, and to understand. If we don't do this, this will continue. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to be 90 years old dealing with the same issue.
Well, I'm almost 90 dealing with the same issue. But hey, we're gonna keep on going until we stop kicking. But our point really is to educate and make people aware of it. And people can take it any way they want to. It's just information. If you don't like it, don't use it. At least we've done our part. All right. So Jack, here we are beginning with this issue of race. Do you want to start out?
I sure will. Race refers to socially defined categories based on people's background. And I thought this was so important because we just don't really think about race. We're so used to it. 3 to 4 main races are known today by anthropologists. White, Caucasian.
You didn't say racist, did you?
No, I said race.
Okay, got it. I want to play that real quick.
3 to 4 main races, not racist, are known today by anthropologists. That is white Caucasian, Mongoloid/Asian, Black Negroid, and Australoid. Yeah, which I didn't realize was one.
You know, so amazing that I didn't know there was a 4th one either. And what's so interesting about this is that when we start talking about races, of course, from a perspective, while we think about it as black and white, and not realizing that there are more races out there, and there are other folk who experience racism other than black folk, Check. I sort of like want to jump into this thing of coloration. It's kind of interesting, you know. People say, "What is coloration?" It refers strictly to the color of your skin, the tone of your skin, the tone of your skin. And let's just relax a little bit. Now, check. We all have dealt with this.
Well, you know, I like the point that that came up in the notes as well about the fact that if you think about it, we have a range of coloration within our races. Of course. Typically within our families, you know, and we've heard of people, quote unquote, passing.
Hey, let's break it down a little bit for that coloration. Now, what does that really mean? Like light skinned people and dark skin?
We're referring to skin tone,
Color.
the shade of your skin on the spectrum. So it refers to your skin tone. Skin color is varied among individuals belonging to separate races as well as those belonging to the same race. Meaning, for the Black Negroid, well, our skin tones certainly range from the very light, i.e. passing for white, to the very dark, okay?
Let's not say it's passing for white, because we don't know if they're passing for white or not now. We know they're real light skinned.
Okay. We'll leave that out.
We know,
able to pass for white.
We know they're real light skinned.
Right. They're very light. I mean, the truth is there are some Black people who have a lighter skin complexion than some white people.
Let's talk about that for a while. And of course, we can only talk about it from our perspective, which is Black. Let's talk about how coloration has impacted our communities. And let's just go back, like you
I was
and I
gonna
have
say, now, you know, that goes back a ways, and that goes back to some conditioning that honestly connects to the period of enslavement.
Let's talk about it.
You know, and it was one of the strategies used to divide us. You know, it was definitely divide and conquer. And so what was obvious and easy is a lighter Negro versus a darker Negro. And most books tell us that lighter Negroes were often given indoor assignments, whereas darker Negroes were more often than not given outside assignments. Physical labor.
No, they weren't called Negroes, first of all. But anyway, and we also understood that to have a lighter complexion, we know you had to belong to the master on some of his hinge pins, right? So of course, there was and not just belief. We know that the lighter skin were oftentimes treated better and or killed, because the slave owner didn't want them to know that that child was theirs.
Right. All sorts of scenarios existed there. But what's interesting is that some of those same mindsets continue today. Because I think we all think of, you know, the enslavement period being so long ago that what does it have to do with today? But the concepts about light and dark are still very prevalent. There's still a view that lighter skin is prettier, right? Especially, you know, when we're talking about female beauty. There's still a concept that people with lighter skin have more privileges. And we're not just talking, you know, white, but we're talking about within the races, within the Black race, that concept is there. Dr. Miles, I'm sure you heard of the what is called the paper bag test, paper bag brown test, where if you were lighter than a paper bag, you were accepted in one social status. And if you were darker, you were placed into a different social status.
Jack, I've never heard that in my life, but I believe it.
You never heard that?
I heard the doll test, which I'm going to talk about a little bit, but I kind of I want us to hang around this a little bit, because this is quite prevalent, not just, as Jackie said, during slavery and for the during the civil rights era, but it was just a belief that if you were light skinned, you don't have to even almost be white, just light skinned. That things were better for you, that doors were open, and that you were prettier, smarter, and so forth. And that belief still, you know, when you start looking at education, now don't forget, but we're talking about children. When you look at education, you know, and I'm going to bring this up because, you know, check, at one point we start looking at the colleges and what colleges kids would go to, and you start looking at sororities and fraternities. You know, they all had. It's
been rumored that was part of it. Now, and I can give you a bigger one that we all dealt with, and this will probably make a lot of people uncomfortable.
Okay.
But, you know, this concept that one of the most popular personalities of our lifetime, for sure, literally bleached himself from being a brown-skinned person to being a Caucasian person.
I wonder who you're talking about.
I'm talking about Michael Jackson.
Yeah. You know, the thing about it is that, you know, and when you start looking at the people that do that kind of stuff, there is sort of a self-hatred. Yeah, there's sort of a self.
It is a self-hatred, Dr. Miles, but it's the point we're making is that it's one that came from a societal,
of course,
acceptance or belief that lighter was better.
But he was accepted. He had plenty of money. It was
that's the point. You take someone who had every level of acceptance and still I feel based on societal pressures, he felt that what he needed more than the money, the fame, the popularity was for his skin to be lighter. To me, that makes the point that we're making.
It's kind of interesting. We're going to hang around here for a while because I think that I want to make sure that we get this out to our audience, that it's not just Black folk that have that kind of issue. Really, in all of the anthropological races, it exists. I mean, even with Hispanic, Latino, you know, darker people are considered worse. You know, the lighter ones go for white. You know, the Astroloid, the same thing. And so, in all the four major races, it appears that lighter is better. The perception is. So everybody strives for this white hierarchy that says, oh, I'm light-skinned. Now, if you don't mind talking about some personal experiences, for instance, I have not, now I'll be honest, I've not dealt with, oh, you so dark, you so black. Because I think it's how you carry yourself, first of all. You know, but there are people who've dealt with, I'm saying I've not dealt with it like that I've known now. That
I've dealt with it.
That's not true. I did deal with it. Because someone was once.
I've had people, since I was a young child, would make statements like, "You're a pretty dark girl," as if the two just couldn't go together. I mean, and then people have said that to me as an adult, you know, just like totally perplexed. Or they would say, "You're pretty," but they would have to bring up
darkness.
Right. Like, again, like the irony of you being pretty and dark. And of course, they felt they were complimenting me. And to be honest with you, Dr. Miles, I didn't know I was dark until somebody told me that.
You know what's amazing, Jackie? Some of this stuff is perpetrated in the homes with families. Is a baby light-skinned or dark? You know, that kind of foolishness. What color is a baby? Well, a baby black, first of all.
Dr. Miles.
What?
I mean, it's funny. I know what you're saying is true, but yes, insane is the baby.
Oh, he got curly hair. Oh, he got good hair. What?
Good. So we're not going there, Dr. Miles. We're not going to the good hair. Okay, it's a whole nother shop.
But we're talking about coloration, and parents grandparents would just love when the baby was light skinned.
Well, I mean, Dr. Miles, bleaching cream is a product that is sold to this day. It is a marketed product. So there'd be no need for a bleaching cream if people were not trying to make themselves lighter. Now, I can also tell you, as a person who worked in the cosmetic industry for a moment, I had women who were my complexion, back for a minute, women who were my complexion, who would wear beige makeup. They would order beige makeup. And I thought, that's not going to work. It didn't dawn on me that their goal was to lighten their skin.
Wait till my beige makeup. Them women used to wear them beige stockings in the church. They black on top and the legs white. And it's because our society had not made the accommodations for black skin.
And for a very long time, in the dance community, people would, you know, the dancers only had the option of beige, quote unquote, nude stockings. I mean, people have watched the Rockettes. Like, I watched them this Thanksgiving Day parade. And this was the first year that I noticed that the skin tone of the stockings matched the skin tone of the dancer. Because it used to be, if you were wearing beige stockings.
You need to tell your dog you're on live stream. All right. But, you know, but as we talk about this, as we talk about race and we talk about coloration, both are illegal in the employer setting. They're both illegal. It's kind of amazing that we start looking at, if you're working in a place where a bunch of light-skinned blacks are there, more than likely something is going on. But, you know, as we begin to talk about race and colorism, Jackie, they're not just your mama hope you got a light-skinned baby, and I swear if baby ain't light-skinned, it can't be yours, because everybody in my family light-skinned. You know, it's really a psyche, and it really is a problem, because you're teaching children that if you ain't light-skinned, something's wrong with you.
Something's wrong with you. And trust, there are a lot of young children, and I mean children under the age of 15, who feel that pressure today. I've heard them express such, you know, that their darkness is an issue. And sometimes it's that their lightness is an issue, because there are environments where lighter complected people, you know, also feel discriminated. Like if they're in an environment and someone says, oh, you're not quote unquote black enough because, you know, you're too light. But then there've been lots of studies, you know, and what I think is important to mention is that this is not something that anyone is getting from one source. Okay, you're not just getting it from home or from the media. This is kind of reinforced in multiple areas. So, you know, the study, there was a study on the psychological effects of segregation on African American children. Now let's think about that for a second. The mere fact that you're segregated alone sends a message. You don't have to tell the child. The child can notice, right?
Your sound has gone out. Can you hear? Well, yeah, the whole point of, okay, I'm sorry, the whole point of this is that you're absolutely right, that it does impact our children greatly. And I'd like to offer our viewers to text in some comments. But I'm going to hang around here for a little bit. I'm going to hang around this coloration thing because I think it's still prevalent. And I still think it's posing a big problem for our society and for our children. It's causing not just Black people separatism, but I think it causes all races. But the common factor, the common thread in all of this is that in all these races, everybody idealizes being light-skinned and almost white. And
I think sometimes people do it even though they don't realize it. And
yeah.
Let's face it. I mean, if you watch TV, if you look at magazines, it's kind of reinforced so many times that it becomes subconscious. Yeah. You know, liking it or disliking dark. A lot of people would probably say they don't have that issue.
Well, you know, think about it too. It's just to meet the law's requirement. Yeah, you can look at television right now, and the people on there, they become like gray because you can't tell whether they're Black or white. But those who are bringing them on say, no, they're representing Black people, and I've been saying, where? And so you very rarely
a confession to make.
You very rarely see darker complexion on there. Thank God for Wesley Snipes.
Dr. Miles. Okay, so I was saying I have a confession to make. I don't know if you all are familiar with the actress Lynette McKee. She was in a lot of Spike Lee's movies. I didn't know she was Black. I was like, what makes her Black? Like, who says she's Black? Like, what's the rule? But of course, she's on that lighter spectrum, and of course, she is a woman of color. But for years, I just said, there's no way. I mean, it looks like a duck, walks like a duck, you know. She was very light, she had straighter hair. I just could not figure out how that worked. And this was as an adult. So the concept of coloration really is very important.
But Jackie, it's kind of amazing that some people choose their mates on coloration. I'm dark skinned, so I don't want no Black children, so I gotta give me a light skinned dude or a light skinned girl, so my children can be pretty. Like
I have heard that all too often. I won't even go into that.
But I do want to share. I do want to share though that we're talking about, Jackie and I are talking from a frame of reference of being Black, but we're telling y'all it happens in all cultures. It happens.
And we want to mention this too, Dr. Miles. Adults shape children's understanding of which categories matter to people, but children often end up forming their own presumptions about the differences among those categories. And over time, those societal messages about race can reinforce biases. Children may begin to, may be forming these concepts from a very early age. It's not always what you say, it's what you do. It's what they see and what they don't see. When you grow up in a home that only has one color, one race, we'll call it that, or one coloration for all intents and purposes. When you go to a school that by and large has one coloration, we're sending messages.
Like, what's your name? What's your name? Cute Redbone. I mean, that kind of stuff. No, I'm very serious about this. My name is Cute Redbone. And or a guy. Oh, my name is Shawty Red. I mean, I'm just trying to figure out, like, well, so that's something.
And that whole red thing always confused me because they weren't red, but they were light. So
yeah, they love to call it red. And guess what? They get favor in that. But what's interesting about how history plays, that at one point the light bright stuff was in. And then another point, the light bright stuff wasn't in. So the whole point is that you decide whether or not you're going to be in and out, and you must train your children the same way. There's nothing wrong with their color. Their color. They're beautiful any way that God has created them. They're beautiful. But you must believe they're conscious
of our own concepts of color and coloration.
Right.
And that's a big issue because I think a lot of people walk around thinking, oh, I don't have an issue with that. But, you know, challenge yourself the next time you see a person of any complexion as to what's your first thought.
Jack, you know what's interesting though is that, and this goes back to a theory and education. And Dr. Kenneth and Mamie Clark were not theorists; they were psychologists.
Mm-hmm.
And what they did, some of you may have heard, they administered the doll test. And what they want to prove is that when you talk about race to children and it's improper, that you begin to, especially Black, you begin to marginalize the Black race. The doll test involved putting a Black child in front of a white doll and a Black doll, and this test occurred in the 1940s, Jackie. And I hope you can see this. I got a little picture. It didn't come out too well, but
yeah, we can see that. That's
this little Black child, and
right.
I recall this when I teach psychology. I recalled it very well. The child was asked the question, "Which one is the evil doll?" She pointed to the Black child.
Mm-hmm.
"Which one is the ugly child?" She points to the Black doll.
Mm-hmm.
"Which one is the pretty child?" She points to the white doll. And then the question was, "Which one do you want to be like?" And she waited for a second, and she put her finger down real slowly. She pointed to the white child. Now what's amazing about this is that this test helped to win a court case, Brown versus Board. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And so
it helped to prove that the segregation did have an impact, which we were just talking about,
mm-hmm.
that it was sending a message, because I think the age of this child was like 6 or 7.
Mm-hmm.
And one would have to ask, where would a 6 or 7-year-old get these concepts if it was not, you know, from the environment in which they were placed and being educated?
Well, I can't recall the age I was, but I recall the time when they were actually began to change dolls in the stores, and even dolls for boys, like the cowboy dolls and all that kind of stuff, that they only had white. It was just kind of amazing. You would walk around, see these Black children with a doll with long blonde hair saying, "This is my baby."
Yeah, I remember very clearly the stores that my parents had to go to find Black dolls, and that they, you know, and I think, you know, being born when I did, it was just when they were coming out with them. Of course, you would remember a time when they really didn't have them, but you had to go, you know, you had to go beyond to find the Black dolls.
And not only that, but not only to find the Black dolls, but find the pretty Black dolls, because they would have exaggerated features on the dolls.
Listen, this is as of this week. I was looking for paper dolls because I do believe we need to encourage little girls to play with dolls again instead of computers. And I could not find a Black paper doll with a smile on their face. They all looked angry.
Because you're Black.
And I just thought, oh my goodness, like literally, I you know, audience, try me, Google me, challenge me. I mean, look it up yourselves. See if you can find some paper dolls that are hard to find, period. But the ones that I saw, I refused to get because the women looked angry. The dolls looked angry. And I thought, wow. To this day.
But the key to this, and you've already covered it, is that adults are the ones that shape the image of it for their children.
But they need to know that they're shaping it with their action or their inaction.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, because a lot of people will go, "Oh, I don't teach my child to be racist." Okay, your child is watching you. What do your friends look like? Where do you work? Where do you socialize? What kind of people come to your home?
But yeah,
where do they go to school?
But I just want to also have people even enter the conversation with race versus, you know, now you Black, now you know something wrong with us already, so you just got to be better. Wrong conversation. Because then we've accepted what people have said about us, and there's no fact behind that. You know, when I provide counseling, that's a little thing I always use, which is kind of interesting. I said it's kind of amazing that you listen to what somebody else says about you, and then you start acting upon that, but it's not a fact, and you have no evidence.
And see, that speaks to, you know, having conversations about race or avoiding conversations about race. You know, the ability to avoid talking about race is a form of white privilege, right? And that's based on what researchers say. In Black families, racial differences and the history of race relations in America are conversations that happen organically at all ages, okay? For many African American families, there is that history of segregation, of separate but equal, woven into the fabric of our experiences. And we are talking 2020.
Amazing.
Okay? The Pew Research Center also says Blacks are more likely than other groups to say their race has hurt their ability to succeed. Whites most likely say their race has helped. Now, it's interesting, that last fact, because I would think that whites would not acknowledge that their whiteness has helped them.
Well, I tell you, I think the numbers are 45% states that
It is.
that it has not, that they got it on their abilities. But I think that all we have to do is look at where we work and look at where we have worked, and we look at how people are advanced. And usually it's not the darker skinned person who's advanced very quickly. It usually is the lighter skinned Black and who's advanced. But I want to turn this or integrate this into a conversation including Latinos, Hispanics, because I have friends who are in those categories, and they tell me about how racism and coloration really is a factor to them. And they have the same straight hair, the same language. However, they're darker complexion, they're tanned.
And they Dr. Miles, that's the issue, though. It is about your darkness or your lack of lightness. We have sent a message. The lighter you are, the better you are assumed to be.
Well, let's look at our definitions. And I'm not sure they corrected it. I hope they have. I can't validate this, so I'm gonna throw this out there anyway. That white was defined as pure and heavenly. Black was defined as evil and dark and mean.
My husband told us a story because he attended, I think, I don't know if it's Catholic school or was it Lutheran school for a while, and he tells the story of the glass of milk. White milk was pure, and was it that something was poured in it, like something black, and then they were told it was spoiled? This is in a school, a church school.
Well, we know.
Did I have the story correct?
Wait, validate your source.
Right.
But I think I understand it. I think I understand what he's saying, and it just makes sense. And it's kind of amazing how this stuff does affect children, especially when it's coming from parents. When it's coming from parents, if there is a light-skinned child in the house and the dark-skinned child is always going to say, the light-skinned child got treated better. It's kind of amazing, and it filters down from generation to generation. Now, if you ask a light-skinned child, she's gonna say, or he says, the dark skin got treated better.
Right.
So it's according to who you ask.
I have both in my home, and that's true. They each say the same about each other.
But the point is that the darker skinned child usually suffers the brunt of it, because they're usually trying to figure it out themselves. They're trying to figure out, are they actually beautiful? Because
and I think that may especially be true in environments where the conversations are not being had. I can tell you, it really is an ongoing conversation in our home. Sometimes from a joking perspective, but more often purely from an experience perspective. We're really kind of checking each other's experiences. Like, have you experienced this? Because now we're all adults, but it's just an ongoing scenario.
But Jackie, guess what? I most certainly cannot compare them to your situation. You're educated, first of all. You are upper class. Your husband educated, upper class. I'm talking about families who are not educated. I'm talking about they don't have those conversations.
Right, and that's the whole issue. When you're not having those conversations.
Yeah.
And worse than that, you're not even aware of your subconscious thoughts and behaviors.
Exactly.
Yeah, happens quite frequently. I run into a lot of young girls who are suffering. It could be either side. With those issues. And a lot of times in school settings, you see certain young girls who aren't as cared for in terms of grooming, and then other young girls who are more cared for in terms of grooming. Well, boys, and it tends to go along color lines.
Yeah, you deal with girls, and I deal with boys also, and the boys are having the same kind of issues. The boys are having the same issues with coloration. Dark-skinned boys are feeling they're not as attractive. They feel like they have to try harder, and some that I even treat actually think that something is wrong with them. Because they're darker. And as I think as we're sort of like repeating ourselves, but they get it, Jackie, not just from outside the family. Hey, black boy, it's perpetuated. And not saying black boy, but the point is he has a name. Right. And don't make it sound as if you're calling your dog. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
And I
And
just
these
think,
things start very, very early. We mention that often because, of course, all of our conversations are about youth. But the point is to be intentional, to first be aware of your own thoughts and beliefs and concepts about coloration, because we all
Jack,
have them.
what was your comment about avoiding the race conversation, period? What was your comment on that?
Well, we were just saying that, the ability to avoid it, first of all, is white privilege. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
what family of color can avoid it? It comes up. And then in Black families, racial differences and the history of racial relations in America are conversations that happen organically. Very key word.
Yeah.
They just happen. You don't
Well, Jack,
even plan for them to happen sometimes. Like you said, we're living a normal life, and your kid's going to come home from school one day and say that, wow, race came up. Like somebody used a term,
mm-hmm.
that was perhaps foreign to them. But it
So
says
that,
for many African American families, there's this history.
mm-hmm.
That it is kind of there, don't you think, Dr. Miles?
It is. Yeah. Check
That's
it.
separate but equal. We ask older members of our family, did you ever go to a whites only fountain? And did you ever experience this? If you look at even our shows, you have a show called Black-ish. They talk a
Mm-hmm.
lot about these issues.
Mm-hmm.
There is a color spectrum in that family. So what we're saying is that these are not old concepts. These are concepts that American society or society is dealing with today.
And
They're
your children
ongoing.
are dealing with.
And absolutely.
So
Our children are
if
dealing
you're
with.
viewing, I'd be interested in you all having a conversation with your child about colorism, even about race. Because I think Jack and I talked a couple of shows back. We're talking about whether our children even realize racism exists. And I was sharing that some of the young people I had talked to thought that it was over and never, they said that was old days stuff and it doesn't exist. And my question was, so why, when you go to a store, you get treated a certain way? What do you call that? People just mean. I said, okay. But so I began to educate them on where their meanness came from. And there is an expectation that we're violent. There's an expectation that we are uneducated. There's an expectation, a stereotype really, that we will steal.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why you're watched in stores, and they're not even aware that there's an overrepresentation of people, of Black people and people of color arrested.
And
Of
those
course,
people watching you
yes,
aren't always aware of why they watch you versus other people.
right.
And I will say that again, I feel that happens nearly every time I go into a higher end store. They just happen to need to be where you are in the store at that time. All of a sudden, they're straightening on your row. Happens all the time. But the other thing about avoiding conversations about race, Dr. Miles,
Mm-hmm.
it sends a message that there's something off limits and
Yes.
even bad about racial differences.
Mm-hmm.
And this was from someone who did research, completed 4 fellowships at Yale, and was also an assistant professor at the University of Pennsylvania. So that tells us that our institutions of higher learning are also studying, the issue of coloration and its
Yeah.
impact on children and society.
But what's kind of amazing to me is that we always talk about racism. We always talk about that, and that's prevalent. It's out there, right? But rarely do we talk about colorism,
Mm-hmm.
or
Which
coloration.
is the
And
backbone of that racism. Yeah.
exactly, and it's inward racism too, because within our own culture, we sort of like attack children who are lighter, who are darker, who are lighter or darker. Again, for those of you who just viewed in, talking to Dr. Willie Miles, Dr. Miles, who's of the foundation, and Jackie Clemens, who's on with us, and we're talking about race and colorism and our coloration and how it impacts our children. Jackie, can you believe it's 7:45? We have like about 10 more minutes. I mean,
Right.
I feel like we
Our
just got
time always
started.
runs out. I
We
don't know
just
if
got
anyone
started.
in our audience has questions or wants to make a comment, but these topics are always fully loaded. We do want to encourage families. We want to encourage those watching to make sure you're having the conversations in your home, but we want to encourage and challenge you to make sure that other people are having these conversations. This is about growth. We mentioned that earlier. This is about understanding how things impact our children. And so we want to make sure that the coloration issue is not avoided.
But I also want to make sure that, and we're not teaching racism or anything like that. But if you black and buying your child a white doll, don't tell me you're trying to teach them how to be integrated. You better teach your child to love themselves and get them black dolls so they can see themselves. They can see themselves. And
I
there's
can't even touch that
and check it. There's some
subject of.
people. There's some of my Latino friends in maybe white. That's who I don't see what the issue is about, because I buy my child black dolls all the time, and I'm saying like, but you don't come from it for the same frame of reference I come from it.
Right.
You know, you're getting it because you're saying it's a good thing to do. That ain't why we're doing it. We're saying it's a must thing to do.
We're saying it's about helping your child see themselves in positive
self-image,
in positive ways. Self-images, absolutely.
But Jackie, you know what's so interesting though to me? You know, we get so carried up. I say, "Hey, Jackie," like we at home. But you know, it's kind of interesting though how there are some black adults who have some issues within themselves.
Oh, most certainly. But again, that's
issues.
where those issues come from, Dr. Miles. And you touched on that a little bit earlier, that we can develop, you know, a sense of self-hate based on how society, you know, categorizes or how we feel society categorizes and views people of darker complexion.
I want to ask you, Jackie,
about this in the show. Look at the images that are plastered on the screens of those who are accused of being criminals. Just take a day and observe. Take a week and see what those images are.
You don't need a week, just a glance.
Just take a glance. Notice how some of them will be closer up versus further back. Notice how when they describe certain suspects, they'll say a black male or a male. They never say white male. So you're either a black male or you're just a man. That in and of itself, and children again are hearing this and seeing this on an ongoing basis. But the other thing that I think is interesting, Dr. Miles, you know, there's a belief and an argument that the entire system of slavery, the reason that color was used, that first of all, slavery was an economic system.
Of course.
Not the social one, in economics. And the economics were made easier by observation. So the reason it was 1/32 because it was easy to look at you and separate you, right? And put you in categories based on skin tone. So again, coloration has had a major effect on the life of this country, on the existence of the country and the experience of all Americans. You know, coloration is behind those systems.
I'd like to ask you, as a black woman, what kind of message would you tell women and girls who are darker than you are? What would you tell them?
You know, we have so many tools now, from poetry to books that support our darkness. And so what I tell all women, darker or lighter, is that your skin is a work of art. Your complexion is a sign of beauty. It's the beauty that was given to you. And I also work really hard to show them those beautiful images. That's one of the reasons I collect Black art. And most of my art, 90% of my art, are Black women, to address the very issue that you're talking about, to show dark-skinned women and light-skinned women, because my daughter happens to be a lighter complected, you know, Black woman. And so I have to, and she has some of those reverse issues, growing up with a dark mother saying, well, you're beautiful, I don't look like you. So it happens on both sides, but you have to reinforce. So I tell them all the same thing, that your skin, and I don't know if you know the model Alex Weck, who is what we would call the quote unquote blue black skin, just beautiful. So I tell them to look for the beauty, look at the beauty, see the beauty in all our complexions.
Okay, I'd like to tell the men who are darker than I am, who are dark, black, blue, that you are Africa, that you're strong, that you have strength beyond what one can imagine. You're a survivor, that you're part of this world. Not only you're a part of this world, but you own this world. You have responsibility. You have responsibility to be good models for your male children and for families, and that your Blackness is simply a sign of your strength. I want you to go out there and love yourself and stop being afraid of other brothers who are dark skinned, and let's break the stereotype within our own culture first before we can ask anybody else to break it and stop it.
Right.
We have to stop it within ourselves first, and
Absolutely.
let's honor each other. Let's honor each other. All right.
Let's see our beauty. Let's reinforce the beauty in our color.
I see Faithful Father's back with us. He said, great point. This is what we must teach our children. And I'm sort of like gonna echo that, not just teach our children, but we must also model it ourselves. We must model it.
You make a very good point, Dr. Miles. A lot of it, it starts with the adults. So we really have to teach ourselves, you know, and I challenge people to look around your home and see what messages you're sending. You know, I know we're running out of time, but there was a time when we would decorate our home in Oriental design and images. It's nothing wrong with it.
Yes, it is.
Unless it sends a wrong message to your child that maybe they need to be Oriental or Oriental is better.
Ain't no Oriental in the house. Can't even spell it. They got Oriental art. And black folk ain't nowhere in the house. I never could get that.
I never quite understood it myself. I have to say, again, try not to be judgmental. But when you're raising children, all messages are important. And, you know, perhaps we need to accept that it does matter.
I kind of I want to go one place, but I ain't gonna go there tonight. I want to talk about who the picture. I'm not going there, but the picture of God they got in the house and of what He looks like. And you tell your children this is who you want them to go into church for every Sunday. You know, nobody who don't even look like them.
Again,
not only that, they look like they're. I'm not going there. I'm not going there tonight. But look, he's
Dr. Miles, we have to go there. That's what.
But he's the oppressor. You're telling your children that the God you got Jesus in your house, blonde hair, blue eyes,
and you're created in His image.
Okay, all right. Breathe, everybody. Breathe in, hold it, breathe out. See, there's
Dr. Miles, I don't know what to say, but
there's
again,
just so
that's what
much.
this is about. We must begin to think about what we're saying and doing and how it's affecting our children and i.e., you know, multiple generations. But that's why we're still dealing with these concepts.
How do you create schizophrenic children? You keep buying them dolls that don't look like them.
And saying pretty.
You keep having your art in your house of China. The child ain't never been there. And you got Chinese artwork and you got Chinese food. I ain't gonna say the child never been to Africa. You got Chinese food and Chinese artwork. Come on. Every Friday got Chinese. We celebrate Chinese culture. I ain't hating. I'm just saying we gotta do better.
Dr. Miles, I'm being a little funny here, but I wonder if a lot of Chinese people have black images in their home.
They probably
and eat black food or quote unquote black food. You know,
I saw
you
the
think
rest.
They got pictures of black girls.
If they don't eat black food, I saw a restaurant that served barbecue ribs and Chinese food. I'm done. So I'm done with that. Huh?
That sounds like a good combination.
Let me tell you, anyway. All right. Hey, listen, folks, you've been absolutely wonderful. Thank you for allowing us to be giddy tonight. But there's nothing giddy about the conversation, really. There's nothing giddy about it. But if you can't laugh, guess what? But these are realities. These are realities that we're facing on a daily basis, and it's all for our children. And this is when we make children our priority. Jackie, how was tonight, you think? How did things go? How did things go tonight, you think?
I think things went great. You know, this was a lighter conversation, although a very serious topic. And I hope that, you know, our listeners and our audience walks away questioning, how do I approach coloration?
I tell you what,
that's the word we want you all to start using, coloration.
I tell you what I'm going to do with tonight.
Race.
I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to find me some bleach and glow.
Yeah, okay. Sure you are.
Listen, folks, we'll see you next week. We'll see you next week. Don't forget to tell people that you may know who may not be having a good time, a good life, a good time. Please have them to email us so we get those gift cards out to them. The gift cards are the value of $50 and $100. We want to get them out tomorrow. So please email us and let us know of people you know who may need those cards. Again, you've been absolutely wonderful. Now we're having, Jack, I think we're having one more session next week, I think. And after that, I think we have one more. I think one more next week, next Tuesday.
So I think that's the 20th, right? Or
yes.
The 21st?
Yes, and after next week, you're not going to see us again till the new year.
Okay.
All right?
All right.
Hey, it's been wonderful, folks. Again, thank you all for tuning in to us. It's called Let's Talk About It. Dr. Willie Miles Children Foundation, where children are a priority. Have a great evening.
Good night, Dr. Miles.
Good
Good night,
night.
everyone.